The crystal chandeliers of the Langston Estate ballroom sparkled like diamonds above the heads of the elite. Waiters floated between clusters of silk gowns and tailored tuxedos, offering champagne and truffle bites. It was the kind of evening only the richest could afford, and even fewer were invited to. Among the guests stood Darius Cole, the 44-year-old CEO of Coltech Industries, dressed in a sharp black tuxedo, towering with a calm, commanding presence. His company had revolutionized sustainable AI-integrated energy systems, and a potential $900 million merger with the Langston family's conglomerate, Langston Dynamics, was the talk of every financial publication that month. But tonight wasn't about business. It was a celebration of the Langstons' 80th year as one of America's wealthiest and most influential families. Darius had been personally invited by Russell Langston, the family patriarch, as a special guest of honor. At least that's what he was told. As Darius moved through the ballroom, whispers followed him, subtle but sharp. His Harvard credentials, his billion-dollar net worth, even his Time magazine cover as Innovator of the Year. None of it seemed to matter here. The icy smiles from the guests, the deliberately short conversations, and the way some clutched their purses a little tighter when he passed, said more than words ever could. Then came the moment. Russell Langston clinked his glass for silence and took the microphone. "Friends," he began with a glowing smile, "tonight we celebrate legacy. And we also welcome new players to the table, like Mr. Darius Cole, who has achieved so much despite where he comes from." A few forced chuckles rippled through the room. Darius froze. "After all," Russell continued, "it's not every day a kid from East Detroit walks into our world. Let's give him a round of applause for pulling himself up by the bootstraps." Some clapped, most didn't. Darius stood motionless, every eye on him. It was disguised as a compliment, but laced with venom. The kind of subtle degradation that told everyone in the room, he may be rich, but he's not one of us. Then came the real blow. Russell laughed and gestured toward Darius. "I mean, we almost didn't believe he could afford the buy-in. But hey, tech money is real these days, right?" Yes. A few outright laughs. That was it. Darius placed his glass on a silver tray and slowly walked toward the center of the ballroom. The room hushed again as people turned, watching him with a mix of curiosity and discomfort. He reached Russell and, with a cool smile, extended his hand. "I want to thank you," Darius said calmly, voice steady. "Not just for this invitation, but for reminding me of something I almost forgot." Russell raised a brow. "And what's that, son?" Darius's eyes sharpened. "That respect can't be bought, and neither can self-worth." Without waiting for a reply, he turned to face the room. "To those of you who smiled to my face tonight, then mocked me behind my back, thank you. Because tonight confirmed that while money can build empires, it can't build character. And I'd rather walk alone than sign a deal with anyone who still lives in 1954. He pulled out his phone and, in front of everyone, dialed his assistant. "Angela, cancel the Langston merger. Permanently." The silence was deafening. Russell's face paled. "Now wait a minute, Darius." Darius didn't even glance at him. He walked out of that ballroom like a king, every step echoing against marble, every eye now watching him not with mockery but awe. Outside, his driver opened the door. "Everything all right, sir?" Darius smiled. "It's more than all right. We just saved the company's soul." But that wasn't the end. The next morning, headlines exploded, not because of any public statement or social buzz, but because Langston Dynamics stock plummeted 17% in the first 3 hours of trading. Investors panicked when news leaked that Coltech had walked away from the merger. They knew what the Langstons had lost, not just money, but relevance. Darius received calls from 5 other conglomerates within 48 hours, all offering better terms, full control, and something else the Langstons couldn't give: respect. But Darius wasn't rushing. Instead, he flew back to Detroit, to the neighborhood where he grew up. Concrete walls tagged with graffiti, basketball hoops with no nets, streets he used to run barefoot down. He walked into a small community tech center, a place he had funded quietly for years. Kids were coding on second-hand laptops, tinkering with robotics, building futures one soldered wire at a time. A young boy looked up and said, "Hey, aren't you that rich guy on TV?" Darius knelt beside him. "Maybe, but more importantly, I'm someone who never forgot where he came from." The boy nodded. "You gonna stay for a while?" Darius smiled. "Yeah, I think I will." Darius spent the entire afternoon with the kids. He sat on mismatched chairs, listened to their ideas, watched their awkward but brilliant robot battles, and saw himself in every wide-eyed, hopeful face. One girl, no older than 11, showed him a solar-powered device she had built to heat lunchboxes for kids without microwaves at home. Darius was stunned. Her hands were small but rough from hours of tinkering. She reminded him of when he built his first circuit using parts from a broken radio and a flashlight battery. "You know," he said, "people are going to try to tell you that you don't belong, that your ideas are too crazy, or you're not the right kind of person for this world." She looked up, eyes sharp. "But they're wrong?" He smiled. "They're terrified. Because the truth is, the world changes when people like you stop listening to them." That night, Darius sat alone in his apartment. No fancy suit, no cameras, just him, a cup of mint tea, and his thoughts. He thought about how close he came to tying his legacy to a family that viewed him as a novelty rather than a partner. How they wore politeness like a mask and used heritage as a gate. But what they didn't understand, what they never could, was that Darius Cole didn't need their approval. He was the table, and he would never again sit at one where he had to justify his presence. Then his phone buzzed. It was a message from his assistant Angela. "CEO of Helix Group just called. Wants to fly out for a private meeting. They're offering $1.2 billion. Full creative freedom. No oversight board." He stared at the message for a long moment, then replied, "Not yet. I'm building something bigger. Schedule them for next quarter." He opened his laptop and pulled up blueprints for a project he had shelved years ago, a network of innovation hubs for underserved communities. Real places, real tools, real mentorship. It wasn't charity, it was strategy. Because while the Langstons and others like them were busy protecting old empires made of glass and arrogance, Darius was planting seeds in concrete, seeds that would grow into a forest of thinkers, builders, leaders, unstoppable forces that no ballroom snub could ever diminish. The next week, Darius returned to the business world with fire in his stride. He took interviews, made power moves, and made it clear Coltech was no longer playing defense. It was leading. Reporters asked about the Langston fallout. He never once spoke ill of them. He didn't have to. His silence was louder than their insult. At a major tech summit weeks later, he was the final speaker. The room was packed with executives, press, and young visionaries. And when Darius took the stage, he didn't talk about stocks or innovation metrics. He told the story of the solar-heated lunchbox, of the girl who had built something powerful with almost nothing, and of the power of not just building businesses, but building people. "I was publicly humiliated," he said, "not because I lacked money or intelligence, but because I refused to shrink for anyone, and I never will." The crowd rose to their feet, and somewhere in the back of the room, unnoticed by many, sat a silent Russell Langston, face unreadable, watching the man he had tried to belittle, now towering on a stage no one could take from him. Darius Cole didn't just walk away from a $900 million deal. He walked into history. And he did it with dignity, vision, and a legacy far more powerful than any name printed on a ballroom invitation. If you enjoyed this story and want more powerful, emotional, and inspiring tales like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon. You won't want to miss what's coming next.